Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of Aunties Corner podcast. Today, I have a very special guest with me, my dear and very close friend out of Cali. Hey, got nothing but love for the Bay Area. My close friend, my sister, Carla Bedford. Welcome, Carla. Thank you so much for taking time to talk with me and share your thoughts on this episode of the third act. That's what we're going to talk about today. So, welcome.
And thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it. I look forward to it.
Absolutely. I know we're going to keep it real, it's casual. The Auntie's Corner is set up to just talk about pretty much whatever we want to talk about. But I thought the third act was really a good subject to talk about for my third cycle because that's where I'm at. But first, before we get into it, let me read the research I found on the concept of the third act of life. It's often framed within a three-act structure, where Act One represents the early years, that you're typically up until around 25, when you're trying to form values and prepare for adulthood. And as I'll steal from Tyler Perry, as Madeir will say, you're trying to find your way, make a lot of mistakes. In
That we
Act
do.
Two, you're encompassing the years from 25 to say 60. That's when you're focusing on family and your career and relationships, those types of things. And again, to quote Tyler Perry, in that age range, you can tend to make some foolish choices and mistakes. But within that wider range, you do have an opportunity to make up for those mistakes. I'm a witness, that's for sure. And then finally, in that third act, Act Three, it begins around retirement age, extends into the latter years, where individuals have the opportunity to reflect on their lives and pursue passions and redefine their purpose, right? So that's what I want to talk about today. You and I, you're retired. I'm trying to get there, one of these days. Well, let's talk about some of that. And you can briefly talk a little bit about where you were in Act One, where you got to Act Two, and how you just feeling in that third act of life right
Well, the first act was not pleasant. You're
now.
young, you think you know something, what you know you could put in a thimble and have lots of room.
Yes,
And
yes.
I was fortunate young to have leaders in my life that kind of
Hmm.
gave me a pathway to getting old. And
Yeah.
that was tremendous. I had a premature son at 27. I
Oh,
stayed
yeah.
off the workforce for about 5 years. When I did go back to work, it's the place that I retired from.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
I've had two divorces, actually
Mhm.
three
Mhm.
divorces. One was when I was very young, eight
Mhm.
years there. The
Yeah.
second one was 13 years, and that's where I had my son with
Mhm.
that gentleman.
Mhm.
And then my third marriage, we were together for a total of 24 years, and it didn't make a difference.
Yeah.
So now I am happy. I am divorced. I've been divorced now since 15 years. Life's been interesting. I've been in one 10-year committed relationship. That was
Okay.
challenging because after you've been married, and I was probably, I don't know, what was it, maybe 40-ish,
Mhm.
45-ish, you're set in your
Mhm.
ways. No, I was actually older than that. I was 58 because I retired at 58.
Mhm.
That's when I got my divorce filed. At
Yes.
any rate, life's been interesting. It's been challenging. It's been exciting. I've traveled. I've changed my perspective a lot from when I
Mhm.
was working.
Yeah.
I enjoy every day. I still wake up at 5 in the morning. I garden. I have a puppy. I have a cat. I have a man.
Mhm.
Pretty
Mhm.
much. And I have a mother who's 93 years old that keeps me quite busy.
Yeah. Oh, yes, you guys,
So,
if you only knew mommy. But we're
yeah,
blessed because my mom is 90,
right,
and
right.
won't move to be closer to us. And what can you do? There are various things we deal with when we get in this age. They won't let us raise them.
Right. But you do become caretakers of sort, even if it's just taking care of either their finances or their
Mhm,
well-being. Because,
mhm.
at that age, people like contractors, they take advantage of older people.
Yes,
For medical stuff, you need to be an advocate. So it
yes.
does change. And then I left out the biggest part. I became a caretaker for a friend
Mhm.
of mine who was
Yeah,
93 when she moved in. She lived to 105. And then I took care of
yes.
my brother, who had a stroke for several years, who has now passed away. So it's
Mhm.
been an interesting life, but I am thankful for it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I understand. I get it. Thank you for sharing all of that. And certainly, I know I've walked with you through a lot of that, so,
Right.
but I can't help but respect and admire the resilience I've seen you display going through all of those things. I was walking with you with that last divorce, I
Yes, you were.
wanted to
Thank
kill
you.
him and you was handling it. So,
Isn't that the truth?
yes, yes, but we
Yes.
still made it through. There's
Right.
nothing like having and we were newer friends then. And yet,
Exactly.
we were together and we were there. I call it God's blessing, divine intervention. Never would have thought. And by the way, for the listeners, we share the same birthday as well,
Absolutely. Yeah.
March 4th. So I think we were just meant to connect and stay connected.
That's the truth.
But I tell you, when you look at being in that third act of life, what kind of advice would you give to particularly women, younger women?
For
Some
younger
of the
women,
things you've gone through have been joyous but hard that maybe
right,
some young women couldn't handle. I'm not in a relationship right now. I'm open, but I know my views have changed,
right.
where
Hmm.
I don't necessarily know if I'd want to live with someone. Well, we'd have to have a much bigger house, that's for sure, because I'm used to my space and the way I keep things, and
No,
so
it's
it
true.
can be a challenge. And like you said, when you get kind of set in your ways, and it's not even set in your ways, I think when you become accustomed to being single, you just have a certain lifestyle, you have a certain rhythm, and someone else being introduced into that disrupts it. It doesn't mean in a bad way, but it is disruptive from what you're used to. Hey, Bernie
Well, it
Mac
changed
said
the flow.
once,
It
you
definitely
know,
changes the flow. Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
it does. I know Bernie
Mhm.
Mac said once when his daughter went off to college, she only had one child. He said, yeah, me and my wife sent my daughter off to college. Now, if something get broke, I know who the hell did it. So
Ah,
that's kind of like where I'm
um,
at. If something
yeah.
broke, I know who did it.
Right. 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 Well,
I tell you.
marriage.
But here's another something that recently came up. I just spent a wonderful weekend in Memphis with my family. So many wonderful memories. So great to connect. And one thing that came up is the fact that when we were telling those stories, my cousins and we're that elder generation now.
Right.
You know what I mean? Our
Hmm.
parents are gone, like my dad and their dads, where we're connected. It's like we took a look in the mirror and like, we're it. So we grew up with our families visiting every summer. That's kind of shifted. What do you think about that? Do you think that's shifted in terms of families keeping those same values of making sure they're connected, like in our era when we were coming along? I know things change, but some things need to remain the same.
Oh, I agree. I didn't have it necessarily. I had my grandmother was our thread. She's the
Mm.
one that kept everyone connected, and we were so far away. We were, my family's base is Detroit
Oh,
and
yeah.
also Louisiana. And those
Hmm.
are, once we moved to California, that was it. They
Yeah.
stayed, my grandmother, like I said, stayed in touch with her folks, but the visiting we didn't do. But I think it's essential. I
Hmm.
think that as you move forward, you have to know part of your past. And it
Yes.
doesn't mean every little detail, but
Hmm.
this family is so digitized. If they don't text, you don't hear from
Yeah.
them. I
Yeah.
mean, and that thread has to happen because when they say blood is thicker than water, that is true. So I'm glad
Yes.
you got an opportunity to do that.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. It was
it's
so
important.
rewarding. But on the
Yes.
flip side, when you think about younger folks like grandchildren, that kind of thing, I know so many people, I'll do anything for my grandkids, to help them. But then I know people that are getting in that third act who are now raising these grandkids. I'm sure you've known some people
I
too.
have friends
What are
like
your
that.
thoughts
Yes.
on that? I even read an article where a woman was retiring, called her son and said, "Hey, I'm going to retire in December." Him and his wife excited. Then the wife says to her, "Oh, great, you're retiring in December. You can start babysitting for us in January." And she got upset when the woman said, "No, that's not what I'm going to do.
Right.
I'll help sometime on occasion, but I have plans and I'm going to travel and no." And she really got mad with the mother-in-law and stopped talking to her. What are
That
your
is,
thoughts on that?
well, I think that's very selfish, number one. That
Hmm.
is their child. They decided to have one. They should raise it.
Hmm.
Grandparents are just that. They're to come in and spoil and love and
Yes.
maybe occasionally babysit. I don't have grandchildren. I've adopted the neighborhood, which is fine,
Mhm.
but I see that way too often. They
Yes.
leave you raise your children for 18 plus years because you never, never,
Yes.
never not become the mother, the father, whatever.
Hmm.
So that thread is forever. But
Hmm.
it doesn't mean that your life isn't equally important. I think the problem with most women in particular
Hmm.
is we are nurturing. And I get that. And I don't mind being
Yes.
nurturing, but I need
Yes.
my life as well. I enjoy traveling. I
Hmm.
enjoy going out and just doing me. I like
Hmm.
wine and dining. Some
Hmm.
of those things you can't do if you're raising children all your life.
Yes.
And you
Yes.
shouldn't have to. So culturally, I know that that is popular with some cultures that the grandparents are obligated or feel
Hmm.
obligated to raise
Yeah.
their grandchildren.
Yeah.
I personally don't feel that way. I think you're entitled to your life. You worked hard to get to a certain age. Those are
Hmm.
your reward years. But
Exactly.
you have to be your own advocate. You have to say no like that one lady did. She's
Yes.
right. She's put
Mhm.
in the work to enjoy the benefit that she, you know,
Yeah.
provided for herself. Because
Yes.
those are plans. So how
Yes.
do you feel about that?
Well, I'll tell you this, I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I'll shift it a bit even to dating. A couple years ago, I met a guy, real nice guy. We went out a few times and he was divorced or whatever. But then I found out he's in his late 50s and he's got a 5-year-old kid.
Mm,
I could not handle that.
right. Nope.
I have nothing against kids, love my grandbabies. But that for me was an act one and two.
Right.
To say you have a 5-year-old, that's
At
20 to
50.
life,
Exactly.
you know,
Exactly.
with
Right.
all due
Right.
respect.
I know you could love them. I mean,
Yes,
if it was something totally necessary, you could take that role on, but it's not.
yes,
And I definitely am proud of you to know that that wasn't for you. That's not your cup of
yes,
tea right now. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. It's like, and even speaking of that, in that third act of life, for me, I'm feeling more liberated, you know? It's like after I initially I remember when I turned 40, it was like, oh my God, I'm turning 40. Oh, I got a gym membership. I was just girl, hurt myself in the gym. I was working out so crazy, because I thought that was it. I'm over the hill. I'm not trying to say, okay, 60 is the new 50. I'm not trying to say that. I'm not trying to be 25 anymore. But there's something freeing about getting to that third act in life. For one thing, my patience is a lot better because, like what you mentioned, it's easier to say no.
Right, right.
you know,
But that's
where
a
before
major
I maybe would
accomplishment.
mull over it or wonder about whose feelings could get hurt. You know what? I got to protect my feelings. I want to be a blessing. I will be, and open to do it as often as I can. But I was telling my sister recently about something as the helping came up, and I said, helping costs.
Hmm.
It costs. But
Yes.
here's the deal. Yes, you help people, but you have to understand what your boundaries and your limits are. You know,
They have
me
to, and you
helping
have to
you
let
is
it be
not
known.
supposed to make me miserable.
Right, right.
And
Agreed.
so if you're talking about re-raising children and that kind of thing, parents, that doesn't even fit it. I'll drop what I'm doing right now to get to Chicago to see about my mom. Yeah, do I
Hmm.
get frustrated periodically because I wish we were closer so I could be there to help more. But I respect her decision and thank God she's still independent, just like your mom, getting their cars and going on about their
Right.
business.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the third act, this is a great conversation because there's so many things to think about, like travel. I just mentioned Memphis. You were recently in what, Portugal? Well,
Yes.
you and I
Yes.
talked when you were over there. It was
Hmm.
beautiful. Yeah, can you do all of those things? Raising kids. Unless you have a husband who loves to travel too, you're not going to be able to do it in that situation.
And you
But
shouldn't
it's,
travel alone if you have a husband. I mean, short trips is fine. I agree.
yes,
But I
yes.
do believe in marriage. Let me be
Mm-hmm.
clear with that. I think that a dedicated
Mm-hmm.
relationship is very meaningful and rewarding, or can be.
Absolutely.
But I also
Absolutely.
think that too often, let's get real now.
Mm-hmm.
People,
Mm-hmm.
first of all, marriage is about love, or should be, or should have that element. But the reality is, it's also a financial arrangement.
Yes.
And when you are young, you do
Mm-hmm.
not realize that contract is part of it in a large majority.
Yeah. Yeah.
As I've gotten older, I do believe that people, regardless of ethnicity, should be evenly yoked
Mm-hmm.
mentally, physically, and financially.
Yeah.
And your values with raising children have to be on the same accord as well.
Mm-hmm.
If you are a timeout person and the other believes that you pat them on the hand
Mm-hmm.
and you make sure
Problem.
that they realize that that's a no-no, that's a conflict. And it can
Yes.
be a major conflict. You're a
Absolutely.
grandparent, you have more children than I do, so you have a
Mm-hmm.
variety of different personalities, and you know how
Mm-hmm.
difficult it can be.
Yes.
When grandkids come over and they're doing something, unfortunately, I have seen generations where when they get in your home, that parent label goes right out the window.
Mm-hmm.
Everything they
Mm-hmm.
do is okay at your house, where they're not
Mm-hmm.
allowed to do it at home, which is
Mm-hmm.
unfortunate
Uh-huh. And mine's on little grandkids have been a little of the opposite. They know what not to do in my house.
because you set the record straight.
They
Yes,
know
yes.
that Gigi doesn't play that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When that little 3-year-old of mine went to jumping up on the sofa one time, I'm like, no, she didn't. But yeah, no. And guess what? Her timeout was sitting next to me for the rest of the evening. So
Right,
that's
right,
her
right.
timeout.
And she didn't repeat it. But you do have to have boundaries.
Yes.
And that's in everything. Men, relationships with women, your
Mm-hmm.
girlfriends, you need
Mm-hmm.
boundaries, men and
Yeah.
children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now
And they don't call me Carla.
you mentioned, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I don't want to
Okay.
hold you too much longer. Thank you. This is so good. But I do want to step back on you mentioning marriage and the financial part of it because a couple of points I want to make. I heard Steve Harvey recently, and I've always agreed with this. He talked about money and relationships, that there should be four accounts, that you should have a joint checking account, a joint savings account. Typically, you come into the relationship, you already should have accounts anyway. And then you have your personal individual accounts for amounts that you agreed upon that you keep to yourself. Everybody, and he said he felt that the woman should always have extra in that sex in that account. And he said because when she's out, she gonna grab you some t-shirts. She gonna grab some whatever's needed in the house outside of that budget money. She gonna do it anyway. He's right about that. But then the other point I hear so much now with younger people, married or living together, we split everything 50-50. And in my opinion, I'm not judging, but that just feels to me like roommates and not
Well,
a
they are
partnership.
roommates. I mean, no, that's what they are. They are roommates. We've lost the men used to want to take care of
And
women.
that's what I'm accustomed to. Yeah.
And I agree with some of it. I mean,
Hmm.
I don't mind being wined and dined, but if I
Yes.
were to live with someone, I do
Hmm.
think that we could split household bills. But
Hmm.
there are certain things that need to be expected, but
Yes.
that needs to be discussed. And I think the
Yeah.
biggest error that's made with marriages, everything's
Hmm.
assumed. I
Yes.
assume you know
Yeah,
what
there
I'm
you go.
thinking and what I need.
Yeah.
But no, people need to start verbalizing and before marriage, all those subjects, raising children. What are your core values? What do you want out
Religion.
of life? Yeah, religion as well. Either you have one or you don't, but
Mm.
agree with where you're going to meet in the middle because if you don't have anything.
Yeah,
It's a
that's so true.
part-time relationship. That's what's happening.
Absolutely. And I want to make it clear that I'm not saying that I believe that I just want a man that's just going to take care of me and I do what I want with my money. No.
Right.
Yes, I'm going to help. But yes, I'm just accustomed. I'm saying what I've been accustomed to, not in
Right.
every situation, that that man is coming home making sure that that household is taken care of. You
Well,
know.
that's what their job really should
Yep,
be. I mean, men,
absolutely.
unfortunately, wearing the hat of lead in any position, it is a responsibility that is not always met or understood.
Yes,
That's
I
a
agree.
topic for another day, I believe.
Absolutely. Well put. Well put. I was going to say, yeah, with that, we're like 24 minutes in. I try to keep it under 30. No, I think this was some good information and pretty broad. We touched on a lot of different subjects of where we are and that third act. Thank you for sharing your first and second act. Again, doesn't mind what rainbows either, becoming a young mother, a single mother, and during an era where it really felt like, oh, that's a shame. It's shameful to be pregnant and young and out of wedlock, that kind of
Hmm.
thing. So, yeah, now it's like the norm. So, with different eras and cultures and norms, things change. But for me, part of the big reason I do this is to talk about how things were and where things still need to be relevant today, even if some feel like it's outdated. Some things need to remain the same.
Communication has never, the need for communication has never changed.
Hmm.
And that is unfortunately not happening. Like I
Hmm.
said earlier, when we first started, everything is about a text.
Hmm.
You lose so much in translation of reading a text message,
Yes, you
you
do.
know. So I think that
Hmm.
children I should talk to their parents. Don't text them. I mean,
Yes.
I'm at
Yes.
it, I'm technologically savvy, but everybody isn't. And that's
Yes,
just not the way to
mhm,
communicate when it's important. If you want
absolutely.
to say, I'm in church, I can't talk right now, that's a text. Or I'm
Yes,
at the doctor's office, I'll call you in.
yes,
That's a
yes,
text.
yes,
But when it's important, you need to communicate on the telephone or in
absolutely.
person.
In person. That's so true.
Look at the love you got on your trip. You couldn't get
Yes.
that in a text,
You
right?
can't,
That's what
can't.
I'm talking about.
I'm telling you. Well, I certainly will share some pictures with you. Well, you can see on my Facebook page some of them I put out there, but I'm going to wrap us up. Carla, dear, my dear friend, thank you so, so much for doing this with me and for me today. It has been a pleasure. We're going to talk again soon on one of these podcasts. We'll come up with
Okay.
something else. Thank you, babe. I love you, and I'll talk to you soon.
Love you and
Take
adore you.
care.
You too.
All
Bye
right.
bye.
Bye.